Lena Cross had everything: power, money, reputation, but she couldn't talk to her daughter. Not because Aaliyah was mute, but because Lena had never learned how to listen. For 12 years, they lived like strangers under one roof, until a stranger walked into a small cafe and did what Lena never could: made her daughter laugh. This is the story of a mother who had to lose everything to find what mattered most. Stay until the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I know how far this story has traveled. Now, let's begin. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday morning, turning the Chicago streets into rivers of gray. Lena Cross stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the city blur beneath her. Her reflection stared back, sharp suit, sharper eyes, hair pulled into a twist so tight it made her temples ache. She looked like what she was: a woman who'd built an empire by refusing to bend. Her phone buzzed. Another email from the board. Another question about the quarterly projections. Another reminder that even at the top, you were only as good as your last deal. She didn't look at it. Instead, she thought about Elia. Her daughter had been 12 years old for 3 months now, and Lena still didn't know what to get her for her birthday. What do you buy a child who doesn't speak, who looks at you like you're a stranger, who spends her evenings in her room, door closed, doing things Lena could only guess at? The intercom crackled. "Ms. Cross, your 9 o'clock is here." Lena turned from the window. "Send them in." 3 men entered, all expensive shoes and rehearsed smiles. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Lena tore apart their proposal in 15, spent the next 25 rebuilding it into something that might actually work, and dismissed them with a handshake that felt like a warning. When they were gone, she sat alone in the silence of her office and realized she'd forgotten to eat breakfast. Again. Her assistant knocked. "Your daughter's school called." Lena's stomach dropped. What happened? Nothing serious. They said Aaliyah had a wonderful day. Ms. Patterson wanted you to know she drew something beautiful in art class. That's it? That's it? Lena nodded, and her assistant left. She looked at the phone, thought about calling the school back, asking what Aaliyah had drawn. But she didn't. Because what would she say after that? How would she fill the silence that always came after? She worked through lunch, skipped dinner, got home at 9:30 to a dark house that smelled like the meal the housekeeper had left in the fridge. Aaliyah's door was closed. Lena stood outside it for a full minute, hand raised to knock, before she walked away. Friday was worse. The Preston deal fell through. Not because the numbers were bad, they were excellent, but because Mark Preston wanted assurances Lena couldn't give. He wanted her vision, her innovation, her track record, but he also wanted something softer, something human. "I need to know you understand people," he'd said during their lunch meeting, his fork hovering over a $60 salad. "Not just markets, people." Lena had smiled, the same smile she gave every man who underestimated her. "I understand people just fine, Mark. I understand they want returns. I deliver them." "That's not what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" He'd set down his fork. "I mean, Lena, you run your company like a machine. Efficient, yes. Profitable, absolutely. But cold. And the world's changing. Investors want more now. They want connection. They want to see that the person leading the ship actually gives a damn about the people on it." She'd wanted to tell him he was full of shit. That connection didn't pay dividends. That caring didn't build empires. But she didn't, because Mark Preston controlled $40 million she needed. Instead, she said, "I'll take that into consideration." He'd signed nothing. Now, at 6 in the evening, Lena sat in her office and stared at the contract that should have been inked. Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again. "What?" "Mom?" Lena straightened. Elia never called. Elia texted sometimes, short messages that felt like Morse code. "Home." "Okay." "Yes." "No." "Elia, what's wrong?" Silence. Then, faintly, the sound of breathing. "Elia, are you hurt?" More silence. Then the line went dead. Lena was out of her chair, grabbing her coat, her keys, her phone, not bothering with the elevator, taking the stairs because it was faster, bursting into the parking garage and into her car. She dialed Ilya back. No answer. She called the house. The housekeeper picked up. "Is Ilya there?" "Yes, Ms. Cross. She just walked in." She's fine. Put her on. She's already upstairs. Lena closed her eyes. Tell her I'm coming home. She made the 20-minute drive in 12. The house was quiet when she entered. No lights except the one in the kitchen. Lena took the stairs 2 at a time, her heels clicking like gunshots. She knocked on Aaliyah's door. No answer. She knocked again. Aaliyah, it's me. Open the door. Nothing. Lena pressed her forehead against the wood. Please. The door opened. Aaliyah stood there in an oversized sweater and leggings, her dark hair tangled, her eyes red. She looked at Lena the way she always did, like she was seeing someone she used to know. Are you okay? Lena asked. Aaliyah nodded. Then why did you call? Aaliyah's hands moved quick and fluid, shapes Lena didn't understand. Sign language, the language Lena had never learned. Lena started, then stopped. I don't know what you're saying. Aaliyah's hands dropped. She stepped back and closed the door. Lena stood in the hallway, staring at the wood, feeling something crack inside her chest. Saturday morning, Lena woke to sunlight and regret. She hadn't slept well. Kept replaying the moment in the hallway, Ilya's hands moving, her own uselessness. She made coffee, checked her email, pretended the world made sense. At 8, Ilya came downstairs. She was dressed, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked at Lena, then at the door. Where are you going? Lena asked. Ilya pulled out her phone, typed, held it up. Library. I'll drive you. Ilya shook her head, typed again. I'm fine. Ilya. But Ilya was already out the door. Lena stood in the kitchen, holding her coffee, feeling like she'd just lost a fight she didn't know she was in. She tried to work, couldn't focus. The Preston deal gnawed at her. His words kept circling. You run your company like a machine. Cold. Was that true? She thought about the people who worked for her. Did she know their names? Yes. Did she know their lives, their families, their fears? No. Did it matter? It hadn't, until now. At noon, she gave up on work and decided to do something she almost never did. Nothing. She got in her car with no destination, drove through the city, ended up in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. Small shops, narrow streets, trees that actually had leaves. She parked, walked, found herself in front of a cafe with a chalkboard sign that read, Good coffee, better pastries, best people watching. She went inside. The place was small, warm, smelled like cinnamon and something baking. A handful of people sat at mismatched tables. Lena ordered a coffee and a croissant she wouldn't eat, found a seat by the window, and pulled out her phone. She lasted 5 minutes before she heard the laugh. It wasn't loud, just bright, pure, the kind of sound that makes you look up. Lena looked up and saw her daughter. Elia was sitting at a table near the back, her backpack on the chair beside her, a hot chocolate in front of her. And across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on the table, was a man Lena had never seen before. He was maybe 40, maybe younger. Brown hair that needed a cut. Wearing a worn jacket and jeans. He was smiling, his hands moving, and Elia was laughing. Not just smiling, laughing. Her whole face bright, her hands moving in response, quick and fluid, a conversation Lena couldn't hear but could see was real. Lena's chest tightened. Who was this man? Why was he with her daughter? How did he know sign language? She stood, her chair scraping loud against the floor. A few people glanced over. Lena didn't care. She crossed the cafe, her heels clicking, her pulse pounding. The man looked up first. His smile faltered when he saw her expression. Elia turned. Her face went still. Elia, Lena said, her voice tight. What are you doing here? Elia's hands moved. Lena didn't understand. The man cleared his throat. She said she's having hot chocolate. Lena looked at him. And who are you? Noah Reed. He offered his hand. Lena didn't take it. He lowered it, unbothered. I didn't mean to intrude. I saw Elia sitting alone, noticed she was signing to herself, thought I'd say hello. You thought you'd approach a 12-year-old girl you don't know? Mom, Elia signed, her face flushing. Noah's expression shifted, understanding. You're her mother. Yes. She didn't mention... He stopped, glanced at Elia, whose hands were moving fast, sharp. He watched, nodded. She says she didn't think you'd care. The words hit like a slap. Lena's jaw tightened. Elia, get your things. We're leaving. Elia's eyes went wide. She signed something. Noah hesitated, then translated. She says she's not done with her drink. Now, Elia. Elia's face crumpled. She grabbed her backpack, stood, and walked past Lena toward the door without looking back. Lena turned to Noah. Stay away from my daughter. Noah didn't flinch. With respect, Ms. Cross. Lena Cross. With respect, Ms. Cross, your daughter was sitting alone in a public cafe. I didn't do anything wrong. I just talked to her. You don't know her? No, Noah said quietly. But I listened to her. That's more than most people do. Lena felt the words like a punch. She wanted to say something cutting, something that would put him in his place. But Elia was already outside, and Lena's hands were shaking. She left without another word. The car ride home was silent. Elia sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her arms crossed. Lena gripped the wheel, her knuckles white. You can't just talk to strangers, Lena said. Elia didn't respond. Elia, I'm serious. You don't know who that man is. He could be... Elia turned, her hands moving fast, angry. Lena's breath caught. I don't understand. Elia grabbed her phone, typed furiously, shoved it at Lena. He understood me. You never do. Lena's throat closed. She pulled into the driveway, put the car in park, and sat there, staring at the garage door. Elia got out, slammed the door, and disappeared into the house. Lena stayed in the car. She didn't cry. She never cried. But she sat there for a long time, feeling something inside her start to break. Sunday was supposed to be better. It wasn't. Lena woke early, made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, and set it on the table like an offering. Elia came downstairs, saw the food, and grabbed a granola bar instead. Lena watched her leave the kitchen without a word. She threw the eggs away. At noon, her phone rang. It was David Chen, her CFO. We have a problem, he said. What kind of problem? The kind where 3 board members are questioning your leadership. Lena's stomach dropped. Why? Because Preston pulled out, and he's been talking, saying you're disconnected, that you don't understand the direction the industry's heading. That's ridiculous. Is it? Lena bristled. What are you saying, David? I'm saying maybe he has a point. When was the last time you engaged with the company culture? Talked to the people on the ground floor? Showed up to anything that wasn't a board meeting or a pitch? I show up where I'm needed. That's not what I asked. Lena hung up. She spent the rest of the day pacing her office, making calls, trying to shore up support. But the cracks were showing. Preston had done damage. And worse, Lena was starting to think he might be right. At 6, she drove home. Elia's door was closed. Again. Lena stood outside it. Again. This time, she knocked. Elia opened the door, looked at her, waited. I'm sorry, Lena said. Elia blinked. For yesterday, Lena's voice broke. For not understanding. Elia's expression softened, just slightly. I want to, Lena said. I don't know how, but I want to. Elia's hands moved, slow this time, careful. Lena shook her head. I still don't understand. Elia grabbed her phone, typed, showed Lena the screen, then learn. Monday morning, Lena walked into her office and pulled up Google. Sign language classes near me. The search returned dozens of results. Lena clicked the first one. Read the description. Felt a wave of something she couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or hope. She picked up the phone. Hello, ASL Learning Center. This is Morgan speaking. Hi, Lena said. I'd like to sign up for classes. Wonderful. Are you looking for beginner, intermediate, or beginner? Great. We have an evening class starting Wednesday. Does that work? Lena looked at her calendar. It was packed. Meetings, calls, dinners. She cleared it. Yes, she said. That works? Wednesday came faster than she expected. Lena left the office at 5, drove to a community center on the north side, and walked into a room filled with 15 strangers sitting in a circle. The instructor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and quick hands, introduced herself as Carol. "Welcome," Carol said, her hands moving as she spoke. "This is a judgment-free space. We're all here to learn. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just try." Lena sat, folded her hands in her lap, felt more out of place than she had in years. Carol started with the basics, the alphabet, numbers, simple greetings. Lena's hands felt clumsy, wrong, like they'd forgotten how to work. The woman next to her, a young mom with a toddler on her hip, smiled. "First time?" "Yes." "Me too. My son's deaf. I should have learned years ago, but—" She shrugged. "Life gets in the way." Lena nodded. She understood that. By the end of the class, Lena could sign her name, slowly, badly, but she could do it. Carol stopped her on the way out. "You did well tonight." "I felt like an idiot." "Everyone does it first, but you'll get there. Just keep showing up." Lena drove home with her hands aching and her mind buzzing. Elia was in the kitchen when she walked in, eating cereal at the counter. Lena stopped, took a breath. Then, slowly, carefully, she raised her hands and signed, "Hello." Elia froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. Lena's heart pounded. Had she done it wrong? Was it too little, too late? Then Elia smiled. It was small, tentative, but it was real. She set down her spoon, raised her hands, and signed back. "Hi, Mom." Lena's eyes burned. She blinked hard, nodded, and signed again, slower this time. "I'm learning." Elia's smile widened. She signed something Lena didn't understand. Lena pulled out her phone, opened a translation app, and showed Elia the screen. "Can you type what you just said?" Elia typed, "I'm proud of you." Lena read the words. Read them again. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She cried. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Lena went to class every Wednesday and Friday, practiced at home, in her car, during meetings when she thought no one was looking. Her hands started to remember the shapes, the flow. Elia helped. At first, just small corrections. "No, like this." But then she started teaching Lena new words. They'd sit in the living room after dinner and Elia would sign something and Lena would try to copy it, and sometimes she'd get it right. And sometimes she wouldn't. But it didn't matter because Elia was patient in a way Lena had never been. Work got harder. The board scheduled a review meeting. Preston's comments had sparked a firestorm, and now everyone wanted answers. David sent her a list of questions they were likely to ask. Half of them were about numbers. The other half were about leadership, vision, connection. Lena didn't have good answers for the second half. She tried, spent hours drafting responses, rehearsing speeches. But every time she looked at the words, they felt hollow. You run your company like a machine. She thought about Elia, about the cafe, about Noah Reed. She still didn't know who he was, hadn't seen him again. But his words stuck. I listened to her. That's more than most people do. One night, after a particularly brutal class where Lena mixed up half the signs and left feeling like she'd learned nothing, she came home to find Elia waiting in the living room. "What's wrong?" Lena asked. Elia held up her phone. "Can we talk?" Lena's pulse quickened. "Of course." Elia patted the couch. Lena sat. Elia signed something. Lena didn't catch all of it, but she got the gist. "Why are you learning?" Lena thought about lying, about giving some easy answer, but Elia deserved better. "Because I don't want to lose you," Lena said. Elia's face softened. She signed again. "You never had me." The words hurt, but they were true. "I know," Lena said, "and I'm sorry. I should have learned years ago. I should have—" Her voice cracked. "I should have tried harder." Elia reached over, took Lena's hand. They sat like that for a long time. Oh. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday at 2. Lena spent Thursday night preparing. She had the numbers, the projections, the 5-year plan, everything they'd want to see. But she kept thinking about the other questions, the ones that didn't have neat answers. What's your vision for the company's culture? How do you plan to engage your employees? What makes you the right person to lead? She didn't sleep. At 1:30 Friday afternoon, she walked into the boardroom. 12 faces looked back at her, some friendly, some not. Mark Preston wasn't there, but his shadow was. The chair, heralding A man in his 60s with silver hair and a voice like gravel opened the meeting. Lena, thank you for being here. I'll be direct. We've heard concerns about your leadership style, about your ability to connect with investors, with employees, with the market. We'd like you to address those concerns. Lena stood. She had notes, a whole speech. She didn't use any of it. Instead, she said, "You're right." The room went quiet. I've built this company by being ruthless, by cutting out anything that didn't serve the bottom line. And it worked. For a long time, it worked. She paused. But the world's changing, and I didn't change with it. I stopped seeing people as people. I saw them as assets, resources. And I lost something in the process. Harold leaned forward. What changed? Lena thought about Aaliyah, about the cafe, about sitting in a circle of strangers, learning to move her hands in ways that felt impossible. My daughter, she said. She's 12. She's been mute since she was 3. And for 9 years, I didn't bother to learn her language. I told myself I was too busy, that I didn't have time. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared that if I tried and failed, it would prove I wasn't good enough. Someone shifted in their seat. 2 weeks ago, I walked into a cafe and saw a stranger talking to my daughter. Actually talking, laughing with her, understanding her. And I realized I'd spent 9 years failing her because I was too proud to admit I didn't know how. Lena's hands trembled. She steadied them. So I started learning. I'm taking sign language classes, and it's hard. I'm terrible at it. But I'm showing up because that's what matters. Not being perfect, just showing up. She looked around the room. I think that's what this company needs too. Not perfection, not some machine that runs without feeling, but leaders who show up, who listen, who understand that connection isn't a weakness, it's a strength. Harold studied her. And how do you plan to implement that? I don't have all the answers yet, Lena admitted. But I have a start. I want to create accessibility programs. Not just for employees, but for clients. I want to build a company that doesn't just see profit, it sees people, different kinds of people, different ways of communicating, different needs. She pulled up a slide on the screen behind her. It showed a mock-up of a new initiative, Inclusive Design Consultation Services. Real estate projects built with accessibility at the core. This isn't charity, Lena said. It's smart business. There's a massive market we're ignoring. People with disabilities, people who communicate differently, people who've been told they don't matter. We can reach them. We can serve them. And we can do it profitably. The room was silent. Then Harold smiled. Now that, he said, is a vision. Lena left the meeting shaking. She didn't know if she'd saved her job, didn't know if they'd believe her, but she'd told the truth, and that felt like something. She drove home, pulled into the driveway, sat in the car. Then she went inside and found Aaliyah in the kitchen. How was your day? Lena signed. Aaliyah's eyes went wide. Then she grinned. She signed back, better now. Lena smiled. Mine too. They made dinner together. Pasta, garlic bread, a salad. Elia insisted on adding too many tomatoes too. They ate at the table and Elia told Lena about her day, slowly, in signs Lena was starting to recognize, and Lena listened. Really listened, and for the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. The board's decision came through on Monday morning. Lena was in her office, 3 cups of coffee deep, when David walked in without knocking. He had that look, the one that meant either very good news or complete disaster. They approved it, he said. Lena looked up from her laptop. Approved what? Your accessibility initiative, the whole thing. Harold called an emergency vote Saturday. It passed 8-4. Lena sat back in her chair. She'd expected pushback, resistance. At minimum, a request for more data, more projections, more proof that this wasn't just some emotional reaction to her personal life. What's the catch? She asked. David smiled. You have to present the rollout plan in 6 weeks. Full implementation strategy, budget breakdown, pilot program proposal, and you have to lead it yourself. No delegating. 6 weeks? They want to move fast. Harold thinks this could be the differentiator that saves the Preston pitch, or at least stops the bleeding with other investors. Lena's mind raced. 6 weeks to build something from scratch. To prove that her vision wasn't just talk. I'll need a team, she said. Already done. I pulled together some people from operations, marketing, and HR. They're waiting in conference room B. Lena stood. Now? No time like the present. She grabbed her coffee and followed him down the hall. Her hands were shaking slightly. She didn't know if it was the caffeine or the nerves. The conference room held 6 people she recognized but barely knew. David made introductions. There was Marcus from operations, a quiet guy in his 30s who apparently ran marathons. Amy from marketing, mid-40s, always wore bold jewelry. 3 others whose names Lena immediately forgot because her brain was already 10 steps ahead, calculating timelines and budgets. Here's what we know, Lena said, pulling up a blank presentation on the screen. We're building an accessibility consultation service for commercial real estate. Our clients are developers, property owners, corporations looking to retrofit or build new spaces. Our value proposition is that we help them reach markets they're currently ignoring. Marcus raised his hand. Do we have data on that market size? Not yet. That's your first job. I need numbers by end of week. Amy leaned forward. And messaging? How are we positioning this? Are we going empathy angle or profit angle? Both, Lena said. We lead with profit because that's what gets people in the door, but we deliver empathy. We show them that doing the right thing and making money aren't mutually exclusive. The room went quiet. Lena could feel them processing, judging, wondering if this was real or just another corporate initiative that would die in 3 months. I know what you're thinking, she said. You're thinking this is a PR stunt, that I'm doing this because the board's breathing down my neck and I need to look good. No one denied it. And maybe that's part of it, Lena admitted. But here's the truth. 2 weeks ago, I watched a stranger communicate with my daughter in a way I never could. And I realized I've been running this company the same way I've been running my life, ignoring anything that doesn't fit into the box I built. That ends now. She looked at each of them. I'm not asking you to believe in me. I'm asking you to believe in the work. Because if we do this right, we don't just save this company, we change it. Marcus was the first to nod, then Amy, then the others. Okay, David said, let's get to work. They spent the next 4 hours hammering out a framework. Marcus would handle market research and feasibility studies. Amy would develop the brand strategy. The others would tackle operations, compliance, and partnership outreach. By the time they broke for lunch, Lena's head was spinning and her coffee had gone cold, but she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Purpose. She ate a sandwich at her desk and checked her phone. There was a text from Elia, sent an hour ago. Can we have dinner together tonight? Lena typed back immediately. Yes. What do you want to eat? Pizza. The good kind. Not the fancy place. Lena smiled. Deal. She worked until 6, then drove home to find Elia already downstairs, her homework spread across the kitchen table. You're done early, Lena signed, still clumsy, still slow. Elia looked up, grinned. You're getting better. Liar. Okay, a little better. They ordered pizza from the place 3 blocks over, the one with greasy cheese and paper plates. Ate it on the couch while watching some animated show Lena didn't understand, but Elia loved. Halfway through the second episode, Elia paused it. What's wrong? Lena asked. Elia grabbed her phone, typed, I saw Noah today. Lena's stomach tightened. Where? At the library. He was there with his son. He has a son? Elia nodded. He's 8. His name is Owen. He's deaf too. Lena processed this. Did you talk to him? A little. He asked how you were. What did you tell him? Elia smiled, that you're learning. Lena didn't know what to say to that. Part of her was still uncomfortable with the idea of Noah Reed, this stranger who'd somehow inserted himself into their lives. But another part, the part that was learning to listen, wondered if maybe she'd been wrong. Do you like him? Lena asked. Elia's face lit up. He's nice. He gets it. Gets what? What it's like. Lena nodded slowly. She wanted to ask more. Who Noah was, what he did, why he was at the library on a random Monday afternoon. But Elia had already unpaused the show, and the moment passed. Later, after Elia went to bed, Lena sat in her office at home and opened her laptop. She typed Noah Reed Chicago into the search bar. The results were sparse. A LinkedIn profile for a freelance interpreter. A few mentions in local ASL community newsletters. Nothing substantial. She clicked on the LinkedIn. The profile photo showed the same man from the cafe. Brown hair, easy smile. His bio was short. ASL interpreter and advocate. Widowed father. Passionate about breaking down communication barriers. Widowed. Lena closed the laptop. She told herself it didn't matter, that Noah Reed was just some guy who'd been kind to her daughter. That was all. But she thought about him anyway. The next morning, Lena had back-to-back meetings, budget reviews, investor calls, a lunch with a potential client that ran 2 hours long. By the time she got back to her office, it was almost 4 and Marcus was waiting with a folder. "You're going to want to see this," he said. Lena took the folder. Inside were printouts of data, charts, graphs, demographic breakdowns. "The disability market," Marcus said. "In commercial real estate alone, we're looking at a potential client base of over 15,000 businesses in the Chicago metro area. Nationally, 600,000, and that's just counting ADA compliance retrofits. If we expand to new construction consulting, the numbers triple." Lena scanned the pages. "This is huge." It gets better. Most of these businesses are currently using generic contractors who treat accessibility as a checklist, just meeting minimum legal requirements. There's almost no one offering high-end, thoughtful design solutions that actually improve the user experience. So we'd be first movers. Basically, Lena felt a thrill run through her. This wasn't just viable. It was a gold mine. "Get this to Amy," she said. "I want a pitch deck by Friday." Marcus grinned. "Already on it." That night, Lena went to her second sign language class. She was getting better, still made mistakes, still fumbled through half the exercises. But Carol kept encouraging her, and the young mom from the first class, whose name was Rachel, had become something like a friend. "How's it going at home?" Rachel asked during the break. "Better," Lena said. "My daughter actually wants to spend time with me now. That's new." Rachel laughed. "I know the feeling. When I started learning, my son thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Kept correcting me every 5 seconds. Does it get easier? The signing? Yeah, the parenting?" Rachel shrugged. "I'll let you know when I figure that out." Lena smiled. It was strange sitting here with these strangers talking about things she never talked about at work, but it felt good, real. After class, Carol pulled her aside. "I wanted to tell you," Carol said, "you're doing really well. I can tell you're practicing." "Every night," Lena admitted. "My daughter's a tough teacher." "The best ones usually are." Carol paused. "There's an event next Saturday, a community gathering for ASL learners and native signers. Lots of families, kids. It might be a good opportunity for you and your daughter to practice together in a low-pressure environment." Lena hesitated. "I don't know. I'm still pretty bad at this." "Everyone there was bad once. That's the point." Carol handed her a flyer. "Think about it." Lena took the flyer, tucked it into her bag, and drove home. Elia was still awake, sitting in the living room with her sketchbook. She looked up when Lena walked in. "What are you drawing?" Lena signed. Elia held up the page. It was a portrait, a woman with sharp features and tired eyes. It took Lena a moment to realize it was her. "That's me?" Elia nodded. Lena studied the drawing. It was good, better than good. The lines were confident, the shading precise. But what struck her most was the expression. The woman in the drawing looked sad, lonely. "Is that how you see me?" Lena asked. Elia's hands moved carefully. "It's how you were." "Were?" "Before you started trying." Lena sat down beside her. "And now?" Elia flipped to a new page in her sketchbook. This one showed 2 people sitting together on a couch, one signing, one watching. The lines were softer here, less precise but more hopeful. "That's us," Lena said. Elia nodded. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the scratch of Elia's pencil against paper. "There's an event on Saturday," Lena said finally, "for people learning sign language. Carol thought we might want to go." Elia's face brightened. "Can we?" "If you want to." "Yes." "Okay then." Elia went back to drawing, and Lena stayed beside her, watching her daughter's hands move across the page, creating something beautiful out of nothing. The rest of the week blurred by. Lena barely slept. The team worked around the clock, building the pitch deck, refining the budget, reaching out to potential pilot partners. By Thursday, they had something solid. Amy presented the brand strategy, sleek, modern, emphasizing innovation and inclusion. Marcus had the numbers locked down. The compliance team had vetted every legal angle. "This is good," Lena said, reviewing the final deck Friday morning. "This is really good." David leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Think Harold will go for it?" "He has to. The data's too strong." "And if he doesn't?" Lena looked at him. "Then I'll find someone who will." That afternoon, she presented the plan to Harold and two other board members in a closed-door session. She walked them through every slide, answered every question, pushed back when they tried to water down the vision. At the end, Harold sat back in his chair and studied her. "You've changed," he said. "Is that a good thing?" "Depends. Are you doing this because you believe in it, or because you think it'll save your job?" Lena didn't hesitate. "Both, but mostly the first one." Harold smiled. "Good answer." He looked at the others. "I say we move forward. Pilot program launches in 8 weeks. We'll reassess after 6 months. Lena exhaled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You still have to deliver." She left the meeting feeling lighter than she had in months. Saturday morning, Lena woke early. Elia was already up, sitting at the kitchen counter with a bowl of cereal, dressed and ready. "Excited?" Lena signed. Elia grinned. "Very." They drove to the community center where the event was being held. The parking lot was packed. Inside, the main hall was filled with people, families, kids running around, adults signing in clusters. Lena felt a wave of anxiety. She didn't belong here. She was a beginner, a fraud, someone who'd ignored her daughter's language for 9 years and was now trying to make up for it in a few weeks. But Elia grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. They found Carol near the registration table. She waved them over. "I'm so glad you came," Carol said, her hands moving as she spoke. "There's a beginner's conversation circle starting in 10 minutes. You should join." "I don't know, you'll be fine. Trust me." Elia squeezed Lena's hand. "Go. I'll be okay." "Where are you going?" "There's a kids group. I want to meet people." Lena hesitated, but Elia was already walking away, her confidence a stark contrast to Lena's nerves. Lena joined the beginner's circle. It was a group of about 12 people, all awkward, all fumbling through introductions. The facilitator, a young man named Jordan, kept things light and encouraging. "Remember," Jordan signed, "the goal isn't perfection, it's connection." They practiced basic conversations. "Where are you from? What do you do? What brought you here?" Lena signed her answers slowly, painfully aware of every mistake. But no one laughed, no one judged. They just smiled and signed back. Halfway through, someone tapped her shoulder. Lena turned. It was Noah Reed. "Hi," he said, speaking and signing simultaneously. "Didn't expect to see you here." Lena's stomach flipped. "I could say the same. I bring my son every month. It's good for him to be around other kids who sign." Noah glanced around. "Is Elia here?" "She's in the kids group." "Owen too. They'll probably run into each other." An awkward silence settled between them. "I owe you an apology," Lena said finally. Noah raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For how I acted at the cafe. I was—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Scared. I saw you talking to my daughter and I realized you could do something I couldn't. It felt like I was failing her. Again." Noah's expression softened. "You weren't failing her, you just didn't know how to reach her yet. That's generous." "It's true." He hesitated. "Can I ask why you never learned?" "Before, I mean." Lena looked down at her hands. "A lot of reasons. Work, pride, fear. I told myself I didn't have time, but really, I was just afraid I'd try and still get it wrong. That even if I learned, it wouldn't be enough. And now? Now I'm trying anyway." Noah smiled. "That's the hardest part. Everything after that gets easier." They talked for a few more minutes. Noah told her about his son Owen, who'd been born deaf, about his late wife, who'd taught him sign language before she passed, about his work as an interpreter, helping bridge the gap between worlds. "It's not always easy," Noah said, "but it matters. That's what keeps me going." Lena found herself relaxing. Noah wasn't judging her, wasn't comparing her to some ideal. He was just talking, listening. "Your daughter's amazing, by the way," Noah said. "She's got this light in her. You can tell she's been waiting for someone to see it." Lena's throat tightened. "I'm trying to see it now." "I know, she told me." "She did?" Noah nodded. "At the library. She said her mom was learning to talk to her. She was proud." Lena blinked hard. "I didn't know that." "Now you do." The conversation circle wrapped up, and people started drifting toward the main hall where lunch was being served. Noah excused himself to find Owen. Lena stood there for a moment, processing. Then she went to find Elia. She found her in a corner of the hall, sitting at a table with 3 other kids, all of them signing rapidly, laughing. Elia's whole face was bright, alive in a way Lena had never seen. One of the kids signed something, and Ilya laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair. Lena's chest ached. This was what she'd been missing, this version of her daughter, joyful, confident, connected. Ilya spotted her and waved. Lena waved back. A few minutes later, Ilya came over, pulling a boy with her. He was small, dark-haired, with bright eyes and a shy smile. "This is Owen," Ilya signed. Owen waved. "Hi, Owen," Lena signed. "Nice to meet you." Owen's eyes widened. He signed something to Ilya, who laughed and signed back. "What did he say?" Lena asked. Ilya typed on her phone. "He said your signing is better than his dad's was when he started." Lena smiled. "Tell him thank you." Ilya did. Owen grinned. They ate lunch together. Lena, Ilya, Noah, and Owen. It was strange sitting at a table with a man she barely knew, watching their kids communicate in a language she was still learning. But it was also nice. Easy, even. Noah told a story about Owen accidentally signing a curse word in front of his grandmother. Owen turned bright red. Ilya laughed so hard she had to put down her sandwich. Lena watched them, feeling something shift inside her. For so long, she'd thought connection required control, that if she couldn't manage the outcome, it wasn't worth trying. But this messy, imperfect, awkward thing happening at this table was real, and it was enough. After lunch, there was a performance, a group of teenagers doing a signed interpretation of a popular song. It was beautiful, fluid, full of emotion. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Ilya leaned against her shoulder. Lena put her arm around her daughter and held on. On the drive home, Ilya was quiet, content. "Did you have fun?" Lena signed at a stoplight. Ilya nodded. "Best day in a long time." "Me too. Can we go again next month?" "Absolutely." When they got home, Ilya went upstairs to call one of the kids she'd met. Lena poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the back porch, watching the sun set. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Hi, it's Noah. Ilya gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to say it was nice talking to you today. If you ever want to practice signing, Owen and I are around." Lena stared at the message, thought about ignoring it, thought about all the reasons this was complicated. Then she typed back, "Thanks. I might take you up on that." She hit send before she could overthink it. Sunday was quiet. Lena caught up on work emails, reviewed the pilot program timeline, made notes for Monday's team meeting. But her mind kept wandering. To Ilya, to Noah, to the way the kids at the event had signed to each other like it was the most natural thing in the world. Monday morning, the office felt different. Or maybe Lena felt different. She walked through the halls, actually noticing people, remembered names, asked questions. "How was your weekend, Marcus?" "Good. Ran a half marathon." "Did you finish?" "Barely, but yeah." "That's great." It was small, insignificant. But Marcus smiled, and Lena realized she'd never asked him anything personal before. The team met at 10. They reviewed the pilot timeline, assigned tasks, troubleshot potential problems. Lena let people talk, actually listened. Amy brought up a concern about messaging. "I think we need to be careful we're not coming across as exploitative, like we're using disability as a selling point." "You're right," Lena said. "So how do we avoid that?" They spent an hour workshopping language, testing different approaches. It was messy, frustrating, but they got somewhere. At the end of the meeting, David pulled Lena aside. "Whatever you're doing," he said, "keep doing it." "What do you mean?" You're different, more present. People are noticing. Lena didn't know what to say to that. That night, she had another sign language class. Carol taught them how to tell stories, not just facts, but narratives with emotion and detail. Signing isn't just about words, Carol said. It's about expression. Your face, your body, your energy, all of it communicates. Lena practiced telling a story about her weekend. She fumbled through it, forgot half the signs, but Rachel said she could follow it, and that felt like progress. After class, Lena's phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Owen wants to know if Ilya can come over this Saturday. We're making pizza from scratch. Thought it might be fun. Lena showed Ilya the text when she got home. Ilya's face lit up. Can I go? Do you want to? Yes, Lena typed back to Noah. She'd love to. What time? 2:00. I'll send you the address. Saturday came. Lena drove Ilya to Noah's apartment, a modest building on the north side. Noah answered the door in an apron covered in flour. Come in, he said. Fair warning, it's chaos in here. Owen ran up, waving. Ilya waved back and they disappeared into the kitchen. Do you want to stay? Noah asked. Or I can bring her home later. Lena hesitated. She had work to do, emails to answer, reports to review. I'll stay, she said. If that's okay. More than okay. We need all the help we can get. They made pizza, or tried to. The dough was too sticky, the sauce too thin, the cheese slid off in chunks. It was a disaster. But it was also the most fun Lena had had in years. Owen and Ilya argued about toppings. Noah told terrible jokes. Lena found herself laughing so hard her sides hurt. When the pizza finally came out of the oven, burned on one side, undercooked on the other, they ate it anyway. This is awful, Noah said. Owen signed, worst pizza ever. Ilya signed, I love it. Lena agreed. After dinner, the kids went to play video games. Lena helped Noah clean up. Thanks for inviting us, Lena said. Thanks for coming. Owen doesn't have a lot of friends. Most kids don't know how to talk to him. Ilya's the same. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Can I ask you something? Noah said. Sure. What made you finally decide to learn after all this time? Lena thought about the cafe, about seeing Ilya laugh with a stranger, about realizing she'd built a life that didn't have room for the person who mattered most. I got tired of being alone, she said simply. Noah nodded. I get that. They finished cleaning. Lena called Ilya, told her it was time to go. On the drive home, Ilya was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the heavy silence Lena was used to. It was the silence of someone who'd had a full, happy day and was tired in the best way. Thank you, Lena signed at a red light. Ilya looked over. For what? For giving me another chance. Ilya reached over and squeezed Lena's hand. They drove the rest of the way home in silence. And for the first time in a long time, Lena didn't mind the quiet. The pilot program launched on a Tuesday in March, and within 3 days, Lena knew they had a problem. Not with the concept. That was solid. The market research had been right. Businesses wanted accessibility consulting. They needed it. But the execution was falling apart. The contractor they'd partnered with didn't understand the vision. He kept treating accessibility like a compliance issue, something to check off a list. Install a ramp here, widen a doorway there, call it done. He didn't see what Lena was trying to build, spaces that actually worked for people, not just spaces that technically met code. He's not getting it, Amy said during the emergency meeting Lena called Thursday morning. I sat in on his pitch to the Logan Square development yesterday. It was all square footage and regulations. Zero heart. Marcus nodded. We're getting the same feedback from the other pilot sites. They like the idea, but the implementation feels generic. Lena rubbed her temples. She'd been up until 2 a.m. reviewing contracts, and her 4th cup of coffee wasn't helping. So we need a new contractor. We need more than that, David said. We need someone who actually understands disability. Who's lived it? The room went quiet. What about Noah? Ilya had texted her that morning, a simple question that Lena had been avoiding thinking about all day. She'd mentioned the program to him last Saturday while Owen and Ilya were arguing over video game controllers. He'd listened, asked good questions, pointed out things Lena hadn't considered, like how automated doors were useless if the button was placed too high for wheelchair users, how visual fire alarms meant nothing if they weren't installed in sight lines. I might know someone, Lena said slowly. Let me make a call. She stepped out of the conference room and dialed Noah's number. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" "I need a favor. Professional favor." "I'm listening." "The accessibility program I told you about. It's not working. Our contractor doesn't get it. I need someone who does." "You need an interpreter?" "No, I need a consultant. Someone who can look at these spaces and tell us what we're missing. Someone who knows what it's actually like to navigate the world when it's not built for you." Noah was quiet for a moment. "I'm not a contractor, Lena. I know. But you know people who are. And you understand this world in a way I never will. I'm asking for help." Another pause. Then, "Can you send me the project specs?" "I'll have them to you in an hour. Give me 2 days. I'll see what I can do." Lena hung up and went back to the meeting. "We're holding off on new contractor discussions for 48 hours. I have a lead." David raised an eyebrow but didn't push. The next 2 days crawled by. Lena kept checking her phone, waiting for Noah to call back. She tried to focus on other work. There was plenty of it, but her mind kept circling back to the program. If this failed, Harold would pull the plug. And worse, Lena would prove that her big vision was just talk. Saturday morning, Noah called. "I've got 3 people you should meet," he said. "Contractors who specialize in universal design. They're good, really good. Can you do Monday afternoon?" "Yes, absolutely. I'll set it up." "Oh, and Lena, I'm coming with you to the meetings." "You don't have to." "I know, but I want to. This matters." Monday's meetings were a revelation. The first contractor, a woman named Diane, who used a wheelchair, walked through the Logan Square site with an eye Lena had never seen before. She noticed everything: the slight incline in the hallway that would make wheelchair navigation difficult, the door handles that required a full grip to operate, the bathroom stalls that were technically ADA, compliant but still cramped and awkward. "This is lazy design," Diane said bluntly. "It meets the legal minimum, which means it doesn't actually work for anyone." "What would you do differently?" Lena asked. Diane pulled out a tablet and started sketching. Wider hallways with proper turning radius, lever handles on every door, bathrooms designed with dignity in mind, not just compliance. And lighting, nobody thinks about lighting. You need both overhead and task lighting with dimmer controls because some disabilities make people sensitive to brightness. Lena took notes. So did Amy. The second contractor, a man named James who was blind, talked about wayfinding and tactile systems. You can have the most accessible building in the world, but if people can't navigate it independently, you've failed. That means consistent tactile markers, audio cues, logical layouts. The third contractor, Maria, was deaf. Noah interpreted while she explained how visual communication systems could transform a space. "It's not just fire alarms," she signed. "It's announcement boards, visual paging systems, proper sight lines so people can see each other signing. Small things that make huge differences." By the end of the day, Lena's head was spinning. But for the first time since the program launched, she felt hopeful. "This is what we needed," she told Noah as they walked back to her car. "People who actually know." "That's the thing about accessibility," Noah said. "You can't fake understanding it. You either get it or you don't." "And I don't, not really. Not yet. But you're learning. That's more than most people do." Lena looked at him. "Why are you helping me?" Noah smiled. "Because Elia asked me to, and because I think what you're trying to do is important. Even if I'm doing it for the wrong reasons? Are you?" Lena thought about that. 2 months ago, the honest answer would have been yes. She'd started this to save her job, to prove Harold and the board wrong. But somewhere along the way, it had become about more than that. "I don't know anymore," she admitted. "Then you're probably doing it for the right reasons." That night, Lena came home to find Elia in the kitchen, attempting to bake cookies. The counter was covered in flour, the sink full of mixing bowls, and something in the oven smelled questionable. "Do I want to know?" Lena signed. Elia grinned. Probably not. They ate burnt cookies and ice cream for dinner, and Elia told Lena about her day. A test she'd aced, a funny thing that happened in gym class, a new book she was reading. Lena understood about half the signs, but she didn't let that stop her from trying. "Noah helped you today," Elia signed. "He did. You asked him to, didn't you?" Elia nodded, unapologetic. "You needed help. He's good at helping. He is. Do you like him? Lena froze. What? Do you like him? As more than a friend? Aaliyah? It's okay if you do. He's nice. And Owen said his dad hasn't smiled this much in a long time. Lena didn't know what to say. She hadn't let herself think about Noah that way. Couldn't afford to. Her life was complicated enough without adding feelings to the mix. I don't know, she signed finally. Maybe. It's complicated. Elia rolled her eyes. Everything's complicated with you. Fair point. They cleaned up the kitchen together, and Lena realized she was smiling. When had that started happening? This easy rhythm with her daughter, these quiet moments that didn't feel heavy anymore. The next 3 weeks were chaos. The program relaunched with the new contractors. Diane took the lead on the Logan Square project, and within a week the developer was thrilled. Word spread. 2 more clients signed on, then 5, then 10. Lena worked 16-hour days, meetings, site visits, investor calls. The board scheduled a progress review for mid-April. Harold wanted numbers, proof that this wasn't just a feel-good initiative, but actual business. Lena delivered. The accessibility division was projected to generate $8 million in revenue by year's end. Client satisfaction scores were the highest the company had ever seen. Employee morale was up because people actually believed in what they were building. This is good work, Lena, Harold said after the presentation. Really good work. Thank you. Don't let it slip. You've got momentum. Use it. She tried, but the pace was brutal. She missed 2 sign language classes, canceled dinner with Aaliyah twice, stopped responding to Noah's texts because she didn't have the energy. One night, she got home at 11 to find Aaliyah waiting in the living room. You missed my recital, Aaliyah signed, her face tight. Lena's stomach dropped. The school art show. She'd marked it on her calendar, set 3 reminders, and still forgotten. Aaliyah, I'm so sorry. You said you were trying. You said things were different. They are. Work is always the reason. Aaliyah's hands moved sharp, angry. You haven't been to class in 2 weeks. You barely talk to me anymore. You're doing the same thing you always do. That's not fair. Isn't it? Lena wanted to argue, to explain that the program was critical, that if it failed, everything would fall apart. But looking at her daughter's face, she knew Elia was right. You're right, Lena said quietly. I'm sorry. Elia blinked, surprised. I got caught up. Thought if I could just get through this launch, things would calm down. But they won't, will they? There's always going to be something. Elia nodded slowly. I don't know how to balance this, Lena admitted. I'm not good at it, but I'm trying. I really am. Try harder. It wasn't mean, just honest. Elia went upstairs and Lena sat alone in the dark living room, feeling the weight of her choices. The next morning, she called David. I need you to take over the investor meetings for the next 2 weeks, she said. What? Why? Because I'm drowning, and I'm about to lose the one thing that actually matters. David was quiet. Then, okay, I'll handle it. Just like that? Lena, you've been running yourself into the ground. We all see it. Take the time. We'll manage. She hung up and stared at her calendar. Then she started clearing it. Meetings moved, calls rescheduled, site visits delegated. By the time she was done, her calendar had actual white space for the first time in months. She picked Elia up from school that afternoon. Elia looked surprised to see her. What are you doing here? Elia signed. I cleared my schedule. Thought we could do something together. Like what? I don't know. What do you want to do? Elia thought for a moment, then she grinned. Can we go to the art supply store? They spent 2 hours wandering through aisles of paint and brushes and sketchbooks. Elia picked out supplies for a project she was working on, and Lena bought her everything she asked for without checking the prices. At dinner, they went to a small restaurant Elia loved. They ordered too much food and laughed when they couldn't finish it. Elia told Lena about the art show, about the piece she'd made, a mixed media portrait exploring communication. I used lots of hands, Elia signed. Different positions, different meanings. Ms. Patterson said it was powerful. I wish I'd seen it. There are pictures. I can show you. Elia pulled out her phone, scrolled through photos. The piece was stunning. Layers of paper and paint and ink, hands reaching, connecting, missing each other. It's beautiful, Lena said. It's about us. Lena looked at her daughter. Really? Before and after. Can I see the before? Elia swiped to another photo. This one showed hands separated by empty space, isolated, disconnected. And the after? Elia showed her the final panel. Hands overlapping, intertwined, messy, but together. Lena's eyes burned. I love it. I'll make you a print. I'd like that. They drove home singing, badly in Ilya's case, because she couldn't hear herself, but she didn't care. Lena laughed until her sides hurt. That night, Lena texted Noah. I'm sorry I've been MIA. Work got crazy. Can we talk? He replied within minutes. Of course. Call when you're free, she called. Hey, Noah said. You okay? I am now. I wasn't for a while. What happened? Lena told him about the recital, about Ilya's anger, about realizing she was slipping back into old patterns. So I hit pause, she said. Delegated everything I could, cleared my schedule. That must have been hard. Terrifying, actually. I kept thinking the whole thing would collapse without me. Did it? No. Turns out people are pretty capable when you let them be. Noah laughed. Imagine that. They talked for over an hour. About work, about kids, about how hard it was to rebuild something you'd broken. Noah told her about his late wife, about how he'd struggled after she died, about learning to be both parents to Owen. I was terrible at it for a long time, he said. Kept trying to do everything perfectly, be everything she'd been. But I couldn't. I was just me. And that had to be enough. Is it? Enough? Most days. Some days I still feel like I'm failing, but Owen's happy. That tells me I'm doing something right. Elia's happy too, Lena said, for the first time in years. That's because of you. It's because I finally stopped being an idiot. Noah laughed again. Well, better late than never. When they hung up, Lena realized she was smiling. Really smiling. Over the next 2 weeks, Lena restructured her life. She set hard boundaries. No work after 7. No weekend calls unless it was an emergency. Wednesdays and Fridays were for sign language class. Saturdays were for Elia. The company didn't implode. In fact, things ran smoother. Turned out when you trusted people to do their jobs, they did them well. Lena and Elia fell into a routine. Breakfast together every morning. Dinner most nights. They practiced signing in the evenings, sometimes for hours. Elia was patient when Lena forgot signs, encouraging when she got them right. One Saturday, Noah invited them to a baseball game. Owen was obsessed with the Cubs, and they had tickets. We've never been to a game, Elia signed when Lena told her. Do you want to go? Yes! The game was loud and crowded and overwhelming in the best way. Owen explained the rules to Elia, who pretended to understand. Noah bought everyone hot dogs and peanuts. They sat in the sun and cheered for plays they barely understood. In the 7th inning, with the Cubs down by 3, Owen turned to Elia and signed something that made her laugh. Lena caught Noah watching them, his expression soft. They're good together, Lena said. They are. Owen doesn't have many friends. Most kids don't have the patience. Elia's the same. She's been lonely for a long time. Not anymore. Lena looked at him. Thank you. For being kind to her, for helping me see what I was missing. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. But you made it easier. The Cubs lost, but nobody cared. On the drive home, Elia fell asleep against the window, her face peaceful. She had fun, Noah texted later. Owen wants to know when we can do it again. Soon, Lena replied. Definitely soon. April turned into May. The accessibility program hit its 6-month mark ahead of schedule. Revenue was exceeding projections. Client retention was at 97%. The board approved expansion into 3 new markets. Harold called Lena into his office. Sit, he said. Lena sat. I'm not one for sentiment, Harold began, but I wanted to tell you I was wrong about you. Lena blinked. Sir? 6 months ago I thought you were brilliant but limited. Good at numbers, terrible with people. I wasn't sure you could evolve. And now? Now I think you're the best thing that's happened to this company in a decade. What you've built, it's not just profitable, it's meaningful, and that matters more than I realized. Lena didn't know what to say. Don't let it go to your head, Harold added with a slight smile. You've still got a lot to prove, but you're on the right track. Thank you. One more thing. The board wants to make the accessibility division permanent, and they want you to lead it. Permanently? As VP of Inclusive Development. New title, new team, budget doubled. You'd report directly to me. It was everything Lena had worked for, more than she'd imagined. There's a catch, Harold said. Of course there was. We're going national. That means travel, lots of it. New York, San Francisco, Dallas. You'd be on the road 2 weeks a month, minimum. Lena's stomach sank. 2 weeks? This is a big opportunity, Lena, career-defining, but I need to know you're all in. She thought about Elia, about the routines they'd built, the dinners they shared, the sign language practice that had become the best part of her day. Can I think about it? Harold frowned. I need an answer by Friday. You'll have it. Lena drove home in a daze. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? Recognition, power, proof that she could do more than just survive. She could lead. But at what cost? She found Elia in her room, working on her art project. Can we talk? Lena signed. Elia set down her brush. What's wrong? Lena explained the offer, the promotion, the travel, the opportunity. Elia listened, her face unreadable. What do you think I should do? Lena asked. Elia was quiet for a long moment. Then she signed. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes. It's everything I've worked for, but the other part is scared you'll mess up what we have. Yeah. Elia picked up her phone, typed, You won't. How do you know? Because you're different now. You know what matters. You won't forget again. What if I do? Then I'll remind you. Lena smiled despite herself. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just started listening. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. If she took the job, she could hire an assistant to handle logistics. She could set hard limits on travel. She could make it work. But could she really? She thought about calling Noah, asking his opinion. But this wasn't his decision to make. At 2 a.m, she got up and went to her office, pulled out a notebook and wrote down everything she valued, everything that mattered. Elia was at the top of the list. Then the work she was building, the people she was helping, the version of herself she was becoming. The promotion would give her more reach, more impact. But it would also take her away from the foundation she'd just started building. Was it worth it? She thought about Harold's words. Career-defining opportunity. Then she thought about Elia's face when she'd come home early from work, about Saturday mornings at the community center, about burnt pizza at Noah's apartment. By the time the sun came up, she'd made her decision. Friday morning, she walked into Harold's office. I have my answer, she said. And? I want the role, but I need to negotiate the terms. Harold raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. I'll take the promotion. I'll lead the division. But I won't travel 2 weeks a month, 1 week maximum, and I get to choose which trips are essential. That's not... I'll build a team I trust. People who can represent the division when I can't be there. We'll use technology, video conferences, virtual site visits. We'll make it work. But I won't sacrifice my personal life for this job. Not anymore. Harold studied her. You're serious? Completely. And if I say no? Lena met his gaze. Then I stay in my current role and we find someone else to lead the expansion. The silence stretched. Then Harold smiled. Done. 1 week maximum. You build the team, but the results better be just as good. They will be. They shook hands. Lena left his office feeling lighter than she had in days. That night, she told Elia over dinner. I took the job, Lena signed. But on my terms. Elia grinned. I'm proud of you. Yeah? Yeah, you're finally learning. Learning what? That you can have both. You just have to fight for it. Lena reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. I'm going to keep fighting, she said. I promise. And for the first time in her life, she meant it. The expansion started in June, and Lena quickly realized that negotiating better terms didn't make the job easier. It just made the pressure different. She hired 3 regional directors to handle the markets she couldn't physically reach, trained them personally, spending long video calls walking through philosophy and strategy. They were good people, smart and capable, But delegation still felt like letting go of control, and Lena hated letting go of control. "You're micromanaging again," David said one afternoon, catching her on her fourth review of a proposal the Dallas team had already approved twice. "I'm being thorough. You're being anxious. There's a difference." He wasn't wrong. Lena had spent so many years believing that if she wasn't personally overseeing every detail, things would fall apart. Old habits were hard to break. "They know what they're doing," David continued. "You trained them. Now trust them." Lena closed her laptop. "When did you become the voice of reason?" "Someone has to be. You're too busy being the voice of controlled panic." She threw a pen at him. He dodged it, laughing. That night, Lena came home to find Aaliyah and Noah in the kitchen. They were making stir-fry, or attempting to. The stove was smoking, something was burning, and Owen was signing frantically about the fire alarm. "What's happening here?" Lena signed, trying not to laugh. "Cooking disaster," Aaliyah signed back, grinning. "Noah said he knew how to cook. He lied." "I said I knew how to make stir-fry," Noah protested, waving a spatula. "I didn't say I was good at it." Lena turned off the stove, opened windows, and ordered Chinese food. They ate it sitting on the living room floor because Elia insisted it was more fun that way. Owen told a story about a kid at school who'd gotten gum stuck in his hair. Elia signed about her art teacher assigning a summer project. Noah complained about a client who kept canceling appointments. It was chaotic and loud and absolutely ordinary, and Lena couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this content. After dinner, Owen and Aaliyah went outside to the backyard. Through the window, Lena watched them chasing fireflies, their hands moving in quick conversation, even in the growing dark. "They're really close now," Noah said, coming to stand beside her. "I know, it's good for her. She's never had someone who just gets it." "Owen's the same. He talks about Elliot constantly. Well, signs about her. You know what I mean." Lena smiled. "I do." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" Noah said. "Sure." "Are you happy with how things are going?" Lena thought about it. "Most of the time. Work's intense, but I'm handling it better. Elia and I are good, really good. So yeah, I think I am." "That's good. Why do you ask?" Noah hesitated. "Because I'm happy too, and I wanted to make sure that was okay." Lena's pulse quickened. "Why wouldn't it be okay?" "Because..." He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "Because my wife died 3 years ago, and for a long time I thought being happy again would mean I was forgetting her. Moving on felt like betrayal. And now? Now I think she'd be pissed if I spent the rest of my life alone just to prove I loved her." Lena laughed despite herself. "Sounds like she was practical." "She was. About everything except me." Noah looked at her. "The point is, I'm feeling things I haven't felt in years. And it's because of you. And I needed to say that out loud before I chickened out." Lena's breath caught. She'd known on some level that something was shifting between them. The long phone calls, the easy silences, the way her heart jumped when his name showed up on her screen. But hearing him say it made it real. "I'm feeling things too," she admitted, "and it scares the hell out of me." "Why?" "Because I'm terrible at this, at relationships, at letting people in. I've spent my whole life building walls, and I'm only just starting to figure out how to take them down. So we figure it out together, slowly. What if I mess it up? Then we'll deal with it." "But Lena, you're not the same person you were 6 months ago. You've changed. I've watched you change." "What if I change back?" Noah reached over and took her hand. "You won't. And even if you slip, I'll be here to remind you who you're trying to be." Outside, Owen shrieked with laughter, and Aaliyah's face lit up in the porch light. "I don't want to hurt you," Lena said quietly. "Or Owen. You've both been through enough. We're tougher than we look. Besides, Owen already told me I should ask you out. He said if I didn't, he'd do it for me." Lena laughed. "He did not." "He absolutely did. Kid's got no filter." "What did you tell him?" "That I'd think about it." "And?" Noah squeezed her hand. "I've thought about it." Lena looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who'd shown her daughter kindness when Lena had been too blind to see what was missing, who'd helped her build something meaningful, who made her laugh and didn't flinch when she was difficult. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Ask me." Noah smiled, that easy smile that made her stomach flip. "Lena Cross, would you like to go on a date with me?" A real one. Just the two of us. Yes, I would. Saturday? Saturday. They stood there, hands still linked, watching their kids chase light in the darkness. The week passed in a blur. Work was relentless. 3 major projects in critical phases, 2 new clients demanding attention, and a site inspection in New York that Lena couldn't delegate. She flew out Tuesday, handled the inspection Wednesday, and flew back Thursday morning, exhausted but satisfied. Friday night, she took Aaliyah shopping for a dress for the school's end-of-year showcase.
I don't need a new dress, Aaliyah signed. I have dresses. When's the last time you wore them? Aaliyah thought about it. 4th grade. Exactly. They went to 3 stores. Aaliyah hated everything. Too frilly, too plain, too tight, too boring. Lena was ready to give up when Aaliyah spotted a simple navy dress with small embroidered flowers along the hem. That one, Aaliyah signed. Try it on. Aaliyah disappeared into the fitting room. When she came out, Lena's throat tightened. Her daughter looked older somehow. Not a little girl anymore, but something in between. Almost 13, growing into herself. It's perfect, Lena signed. Aaliyah smiled. Can I wear your silver necklace with it? Of course. They bought the dress and got ice cream on the way home. Aaliyah ordered chocolate chip, Lena got vanilla, and they shared both. You have a date tomorrow, Aaliyah signed, grinning around her spoon. I do. With Noah. Yes, with Noah. Are you nervous? Lena considered lying. Terrified. Why? Because I like him, and I don't want to screw it up. You won't. You don't know that. Aaliyah set down her ice cream. Mom, you overthink everything. Just be yourself, the new yourself, not the old one. What if the new me is still a disaster? Then at least you're an interesting disaster. Lena laughed. Is that supposed to be encouraging? It's supposed to be honest. They finished their ice cream, and Lena drove home feeling lighter. Maybe Aaliyah was right. Maybe she was overthinking this. It was just dinner. Just 2 people spending time together. Except it didn't feel like just anything. Saturday arrived too fast. Lena changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a cream sweater. Nothing fancy, Noah had said. Just dinner and maybe a walk. Ilya appeared in her doorway. You look nice. Not too casual? Mom, it's Noah. He's seen you covered in pizza dough and flour. I think you're fine. Fair point. Noah picked her up at 7. He was wearing jeans and a button-down, and Lena felt ridiculously nervous, like she was 16 again. Hi, he said. Hi. They stood there for an awkward moment before both laughing. This is weird, right? Lena said. So weird. We've had dinner a dozen times, but now it's a date and suddenly I don't remember how to talk. Same. Ilya appeared behind Lena. You're both being ridiculous. Go have fun. She shooed them out the door. Noah had made reservations at a small Italian place on the west side. It was quiet, warm, the kind of place where you could actually talk without shouting. They ordered wine and pasta, and slowly the awkwardness faded. How's work? Noah asked. Chaotic. Good chaotic, but still chaotic. The New York project is massive, 30-floor office building, full accessibility redesign. It's the biggest thing we've done. That's amazing. It's terrifying. If we mess it up, it'll set the whole division back. You won't mess it up. You don't know that. Noah smiled. I know you. You don't do things halfway. You'll make it work. They talked about Owen, about Elia, about the community center event next month. Noah told her about a difficult interpreting job, a legal proceeding where the deaf client was being railroaded by lawyers who didn't understand basic communication access. I wanted to throw something at them, Noah said. They kept talking over me, ignoring my client, acting like his deafness made him stupid. What did you do? Stopped interpreting until they shut up and listened. It didn't make me popular, but it worked. Lena reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You're good at what you do. So are you. After dinner, they walked along the river. The city lights reflected on the water, and the air was warm with the promise of summer. I'm glad we did this, Lena said. Me too. I was worried it would be weird, that it would change things. Did it? Lena thought about it. Yeah, but in a good way. They walked in silence for a while, hands brushing occasionally but not quite linking. Can I ask you something? Noah said. Sure. Why did you say yes to tonight? Because I like you, And because Ilya told me to stop overthinking everything. Noah laughed. Smart kid. She is. Smarter than me, probably.
I doubt that. I'm serious. She sees things clearly. I complicate everything. That's not always bad. Complicated means you're thinking about consequences, trying to do things right. Or it means I'm scared. Maybe both. They stopped walking. Noah turned to face her. I'm scared too, he said. I haven't done this since my wife died. And honestly, I'm terrified of getting it wrong, of hurting Owen, of hurting you. But I'm more scared of not trying. Lena looked up at him. What if we're not ready? Then we'll figure it out. Together, slowly. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. He leaned down, hesitating, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. When he kissed her, it was soft and careful, and Lena felt something in her chest unfold. They pulled apart, both smiling. That was nice, Lena said. It was. Can we do it again? Absolutely. They did. The drive home was quiet, comfortable. Noah walked her to the door, kissed her goodnight again, and left with a promise to call tomorrow. Inside, Ilya was waiting on the couch, pretending to read. Don't even try to act like you weren't spying, Lena signed. Ilya grinned. How was it? Good, really good. Did he kiss you? That's none of your business. So yes. Lena threw a pillow at her. Ilya caught it, laughing. I'm happy for you, Mom. Yeah? Yeah. You deserve this. Lena sat down beside her daughter. So do you. You deserve to have a mom who's present, who tries. You are trying. And it shows. They sat together, and Lena realized how much had changed in 6 months. This time last year, they'd barely spoken. Now they were here, talking, laughing, building something real. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Lena and Noah saw each other twice a week. Sometimes just the two of them, sometimes with the kids. They went to movies, tried new restaurants, spent a Sunday at the zoo where Owen narrated every animal exhibit with dramatic flair. Work stayed intense, but Lena was managing it better. She trusted her team, delegated effectively, and only traveled when absolutely necessary. The New York project was progressing well. The clients were thrilled, the contractors were executing flawlessly, and early projections showed they'd come in under budget. Harold called her one afternoon. I have news. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective. We're getting national press. Forbes wants to do a feature on the accessibility division. They're calling it innovative, groundbreaking. They want to interview you. Lena's heart raced. When? Next week. They're sending a reporter to shadow you for a day. See the work, talk to clients, get the full picture. That's huge. It is. Don't screw it up. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Harold chuckled. You'll do fine. Just be yourself. The version of yourself that doesn't terrify people. Lena told Noah that night over dinner. That's incredible, he said. You should be proud. I'm nervous. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they make it sound like I'm exploiting disability for profit? Then you'll correct them, Lena. You're doing good work. Real work. Let people see that. What if they don't? Then they're not paying attention. The Forbes reporter, a woman named Christina Park, showed up the following Tuesday. She was sharp, direct, asked questions that cut straight to the core. Why accessibility? Christina asked during the interview. Why now? Lena thought about giving her the polished answer, the market opportunity, the competitive advantage, the vision for inclusive growth. Instead, she told the truth. Because I realized I'd spent 12 years not understanding my own daughter. She's been mute since she was 3, and I never bothered to learn sign language. I told myself I was too busy, but really, I was scared. Scared I'd try and fail, scared I'd prove I wasn't good enough. Christina's pen paused over her notebook. One day, Lena continued, I saw a stranger communicate with my daughter in ways I couldn't, and it broke something open in me. I realized I'd been running my company the same way I'd been running my life, ignoring anything that didn't fit neatly into my worldview. So I changed. I started learning, and I realized that accessibility isn't just about ramps and doors. It's about seeing people, really seeing them, understanding that different doesn't mean less. And that became a business model. It became a philosophy. The business model followed. Christina nodded slowly. Can I meet your daughter? Lena hesitated. She's shy about press. I won't use her name. I just want to understand the why behind this. And it sounds like she's the why. That night, Lena asked Ilya, a reporter wants to talk to you about me, about the work we're doing. You can say no. Ilya thought about it. What would I have to do? Just talk. Well, sign. There'd be an interpreter. She wants to understand why this matters. Will you be there? If you want me to be. Then okay. The interview happened 2 days later. Christina brought in an interpreter and Ilya sat across from her in the living room, surprisingly composed. Why do you think your mom started this program? Christina asked. Ilya's hands moved steadily. Because she finally saw me. Not the version of me she wanted, but the real me. And once she saw me, she couldn't unsee all the other people she'd been ignoring. Do you think she's changed? Completely. The mom I have now is nothing like the mom I had a year ago. Is that good? Ilya smiled. It's everything. The article ran 3 weeks later. Lena read it sitting at her kitchen table, coffee going cold beside her. Christina had captured everything, the personal journey, the business innovation, the human impact. She'd quoted Diane and James and Maria, the contractors who'd helped build the vision. She'd included testimonials from clients whose spaces had been transformed. And she'd ended with Ilya's words. My mom learned to see me, and in doing that, she learned to see everyone. Lena's phone exploded. Calls from investors, from potential clients, from other companies wanting to replicate the model. Her inbox filled with hundreds of messages. The accessibility division went from a promising experiment to a national conversation. Harold called. We need to talk about scaling. How much scaling? Double your team, triple your budget. We're getting inquiries from 15 states. This is bigger than any of us anticipated. Lena's head spun. I don't know if I can. You can, and you will, but we need a plan, a real one. They spent the next month building that plan. Lena hired 6 new regional directors, established partnerships with disability advocacy organizations, launched a training program for contractors nationwide. The work was enormous, but she wasn't doing it alone. David managed operations. Amy handled the branding and PR. Marcus crunched numbers and kept them solvent. Through it all, Lena held on to her boundaries. 1 week of travel maximum, no work after 7. Sign language class every Wednesday and Friday, community center every 3rd Saturday. Because she'd learned something crucial. She couldn't lead this division if she lost sight of why it mattered. And why it mattered was sitting across from her at dinner every night, signing about her day, laughing at bad jokes, being the person Lena had almost missed entirely. In August, Ilya's school showcase arrived. Lena sat in the auditorium next to Noah, watching students present their art. When Ilya's turn came, she walked to the front with her piece, the mixed media portrait about communication. She didn't speak, of course, but she'd written an artist's statement that the art teacher read aloud. This piece is called Finding Language. It's about the space between people and how we cross it. For most of my life, I lived in silence, not because I couldn't communicate, but because nobody was listening. This year, someone finally heard me, and everything changed. This piece is for my mom, who learned to speak my language, and in doing that taught me that I was worth hearing. Lena's vision blurred. Noah reached over and squeezed her hand. When the showcase ended, Ilya found them in the crowd. You came, she signed. Of course I came. Both of you. Noah smiled. Wouldn't have missed it. They went out for ice cream after, the 4 of them, Lena, Ilya, Noah, and Owen. Sat outside in the warm summer night, and Lena thought about how different this was from a year ago. How lonely she'd been. How lost. What are you thinking about? Noah asked. How lucky I am. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her temple. We're the lucky ones. Across the table, Ilya and Owen were arguing about which ice cream flavor was superior. Their hands moved fast, their faces animated, and Lena felt her heart swell. This was it. This was the life she'd been missing while she was busy building empires and proving her worth. And now that she'd found it, she wasn't letting go. September brought the kind of change that sneaks up on you. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet shift that happens when you're not paying attention, and suddenly you look around and realize everything is different. Elia started 8th grade. She came home that first day with a permission slip for the debate club, which shocked Lena because Elia had never shown interest in anything that required standing in front of people. Debate club? Lena signed, holding up the paper. They have an ASL division, Elia explained. Ms. Patterson told me about it. There are 3 other deaf kids in the school. We'd compete against other schools. Do you want to do it? Elia nodded, tentative but excited. I think so. Is that weird? Why would it be weird? Because I used to hate being noticed, and this is like asking to be noticed. Lena set down the permission slip and looked at her daughter. You're not the same person you were last year. Neither am I. If you want to do this, do it. Elia signed the slip herself, her handwriting looping and confident. That same week, the company hit a snag. The Dallas office had landed a major client, a hotel chain looking to retrofit 23 properties across the South, but the client was balking at the cost. They wanted accessibility, but they wanted it cheap, and cheap meant cutting corners Lena wouldn't cut. They're threatening to walk, David said during the emergency meeting. And if they do, we lose the entire southern expansion. Then we lose it, Lena said. The room went silent. Lena, Harold said carefully, this is a $12 million contract. I know what it is, but if we compromise on this, we compromise on everything. We built this division on the principle that accessibility isn't an afterthought. It's not something you do halfway to check a box. Either we do it right or we don't do it at all. That's easy to say when it's not your money on the line, one of the board members muttered. Lena turned to him. You're right. It's not my money. It's the company's money. But it's my integrity. And I'm not selling that for $12 million or $1,200 million. Harold studied her. You're willing to walk away? I'm willing to stand firm. If they want what we're offering, they'll pay for it. If they don't, someone else will. The meeting ended without resolution. The board wanted her to reconsider. Lena refused. That night, Noah found her sitting on her back porch, staring at nothing. Rough day? He asked, sitting beside her. I might have just tanked a $12 million deal. On purpose? They wanted me to compromise, build cheap, call it accessible, move on. I said no. Noah was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about that? Terrified, angry, weirdly proud. The Lena I met 6 months ago would have taken the deal. I know. So what changed? Lena thought about it. I realized that some things matter more than money. And if I'm going to ask people to trust this vision, I have to protect it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Noah put his arm around her. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Even if it cost me my job, even then. 2 days later, the Dallas client called back. They'd found budget. They wanted to move forward on Lena's terms. Harold walked into her office with a rare smile. You gambled and won. I wasn't gambling. I was holding a line. Well, whatever you call it, the board is impressed. Terrified, but impressed. Good. They should be a little scared, keeps them honest. Harold laughed. You've changed, Lena. A year ago, you would have done anything to close that deal. A year ago, I didn't know what I was building. Now I do. October was Aaliyah's 13th birthday. Lena took the day off. The whole day, which felt both radical and absolutely necessary. They started with pancakes that Lena burned slightly, then spent the afternoon at the museum where Elia sketched sculptures and Lena tried not to hover. Noah and Owen joined them for dinner at Elia's favorite restaurant, the one with too much garlic bread and red checkered tablecloths. They ordered everything on the menu, or it felt like they did, and Owen told increasingly ridiculous jokes that had Elia laughing so hard she couldn't sign straight. After dinner, they came back to the house for cake. Lena had attempted to bake it herself, which was ambitious and ultimately required store-bought backup, but Elia appreciated the effort. Make a wish, Lena signed when they'd lit the candles. Elia closed her eyes, thought for a long moment, then blew them out. What did you wish for? Owen signed. Can't tell you, or it won't come true. That's not real. Probably not, but I'm not risking it. Later, after Noah and Owen had left and Elia was getting ready for bed, she came into Lena's room with something in her hands. I have something for you, Elia signed. It's your birthday. I'm supposed to give you things. I know, but I made this. She handed Lena a sketchbook. Lena opened it carefully. Inside were drawings, dozens of them. Sketches of their house, of Aaliyah's room, of Lena sitting at the kitchen table. There were drawings of the cafe where everything changed, of the community center, of Noah and Owen. And on the last page, a portrait of Lena and Aaliyah sitting together on the couch, their hands mid-sign, their faces turned toward each other. Beneath it, Aaliyah had written, "Before, we were strangers. Now, we're family. Thank you for learning my language, Mom. I love you." Lena's vision blurred. She pulled Aaliyah into a hug and held on tight. "I love you too," she signed when they finally pulled apart. "More than anything." "I know," Aaliyah signed. "I can tell now." November brought an unexpected opportunity. A national disability rights organization contacted Lena about speaking at their annual conference. They wanted her to talk about corporate accessibility, about building inclusive business models, about what it meant to center disability in design rather than treating it as an afterthought. "It's a big audience," the organizer explained over the phone. "About 1,500 people, advocates, policymakers, business leaders. We think your story could really resonate." Lena's first instinct was to say no. Public speaking wasn't her strength, and talking about her personal journey felt exposing in ways that made her uncomfortable. But she thought about Diane and James and Maria, about the contractors who taught her to see spaces differently, about Elia and Owen and every other kid who'd grown up navigating a world that wasn't built for them. "I'll do it," she said. She spent 2 weeks writing the speech, scrapping it, starting over. Nothing felt right. Everything sounded either too corporate or too sentimental, and Lena couldn't find the balance. Finally, she called Noah. "I can't figure this out," she admitted. "Every version I write sounds fake." "Then stop trying to write a speech and just tell the story." "What story?" "Your story, Aaliyah's story, the real one, with all the messy parts. That's what people need to hear." "What if it's too personal?" "Then it'll actually mean something." The conference was in Washington, D.C., and the first weekend in December. Lena flew out Friday night, spent Saturday rehearsing in her hotel room, and barely slept. Sunday morning, she stood backstage watching the auditorium fill with people. Her hands were shaking. Her carefully prepared notes suddenly felt inadequate. The organizer gave her a 5-minute warning. Lena pulled out her phone and texted Elia. "I'm about to go on. I'm terrified." Elia's response came immediately. "You've got this. Just be honest. That's all anyone wants." The organizer called her name. Lena walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, the audience vast, and for a moment Lena's mind went completely blank. Then she saw a woman in the third row signing to her daughter, and something clicked. "I'm going to start with a confession," Lena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "A year ago, I didn't know sign language. My daughter has been mute since she was 3. And I spent 9 years telling myself I was too busy to learn. That's not true. I wasn't too busy. I was scared. Scared that if I tried and still couldn't reach her, it would prove I was failing as a mother, so I didn't try. I just kept my distance and told myself it was fine." The room was completely silent. Then one morning I walked into a cafe and saw a stranger talking to my daughter. Actually talking, laughing with her, and I realized what I'd lost. Not just time, but connection, understanding, love in the way that actually matters. Lena talked about learning sign language, about the frustration and the small victories, about realizing that her inability to connect with Elia mirrored how she'd built her company, seeing people as assets, not humans. She talked about the accessibility division, about Diane and James and Maria, about how they'd taught her that designing for disability wasn't charity. It was good business. It was human decency. It was seeing the world as it actually was, not as she'd assumed it to be. "We spend so much time building systems that work for the majority," Lena said, "that we forget the majority isn't everyone. And when we design only for ourselves, we miss entire communities of people who have things to offer, things to contribute, things to teach us. My daughter taught me that different doesn't mean less. It just means different. And once I understood that, everything changed." She finished with Elia's words from the Forbes article. "My mom learned to see me, and in doing that, she learned to see everyone." The applause was immediate and overwhelming. Afterwards, people lined up to talk to her, parents of disabled children, business owners looking to do better. advocates who'd been fighting these battles for decades. One woman, maybe 60, using a wheelchair, grabbed Lena's hand. "Thank you," she said simply, "for getting it. Finally." Lena flew home that night feeling lighter than she had in months. When she walked into the house, Elia and Noah were waiting. They'd made dinner, successfully this time, and Owen had drawn a welcome home banner that was taped crookedly across the kitchen doorway. "How did it go?" Elia signed. "Really well, I think." "Did you tell them about me?" "I did. I hope that's okay." Elia smiled. "It's perfect." They ate dinner together, all four of them, and Lena realized this was the family she'd built without quite meaning to. Not the traditional kind, not the kind she'd imagined when she was younger and thought she had everything figured out, but the kind that mattered, the kind built on showing up and trying and being willing to fail and try again. December was a blur of holiday preparations and year-end reviews. The accessibility division had exceeded every projection. Revenue was up 300% from initial estimates. Client retention was nearly perfect. Employee satisfaction in the division was the highest in the company. Harold called Lena into his office the week before Christmas. "Sit," he said. Lena sat. "The board met yesterday. We've made a decision." Lena's stomach clenched. "About?" "About you. We want to restructure the company, create a new C-suite position, Chief Inclusion Officer, overseeing not just accessibility, but diversity, equity, culture, the whole thing, and we want you in that role." Lena stared at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely. You'd report directly to me. Budget of $20 million to start, team of 30, national scope. It's a big job, Lena. Probably the most important one we'll create in the next decade. When do you need an answer?" "January 15th. Take the holidays. Think about it. Talk to your family. But I'm hoping you'll say yes." Lena left his office in a daze. That night she told Noah and Aaliyah over dinner. "That's incredible," Noah said. "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. It's huge. The scope, the responsibility, it's everything I've worked for. But it's also terrifying." "Why terrifying?" Elia signed. "Because what if I can't do it? What if I get overwhelmed and go back to old patterns?" "Then we'll pull you back," Noah said simply. "That's what we're here for." Elia nodded. "You're not alone anymore, Mom. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself." Lena looked at them, these two people who'd become her center, and felt something settle in her chest. "You're right," she signed to Elia. "I'm not alone." Christmas was small and perfect. They spent it at Lena's house, her, Elia, Noah, and Owen. They cooked too much food, watched bad movies, built a fire in the fireplace that smoked more than it burned. Owen and Aaliyah stayed up past midnight playing board games. Their competitive streaks surprisingly well matched. On Christmas morning, they exchanged gifts. Lena gave Elia a professional art set she'd been eyeing for months. Elia gave Lena a framed print of the Finding Language piece from the showcase. Noah gave Lena a first edition of a book she'd mentioned loving as a kid. Lena gave Noah a watch he'd admired once in passing. But the gift that mattered most was the one Owen gave to Elia. It was a bracelet he'd made himself, beads spelling out "best friend" in simple letters. "You're my best friend," Owen signed. "I wanted you to know." Elia's eyes filled. She pulled him into a hug and Lena watched, her own throat tight. Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, Lena and Noah sat by the dying fire. "I'm going to take the job," Lena said. "Yeah?" "Yeah, it scares me, but I think that means I should do it." Noah smiled. "I think so too." "What about us? This is going to be intense. More travel, more pressure, more everything." "Then we'll figure it out. We've been figuring things out for months. Why stop now?" "Because what if I mess this up? What if I get too focused on work and lose sight of what matters?" Noah took her hand. "Then I'll remind you. Elia will remind you. We'll keep you honest. That's what people who love you do." Lena's breath caught. "You love me?" "Yeah, I do. Have for a while now." "I love you too," Lena said, the words feeling both terrifying and absolutely right. Noah kissed her, slow and sweet, and Lena let herself feel it, the fear, the hope, the possibility of building something that might actually last. January came with its usual rush of new beginnings.
Lena accepted the Chief Inclusion Officer position. The announcement went out company-wide, and the response was overwhelming. Messages from employees she'd never met, thanking her for making the company better. Notes from clients whose spaces had been transformed. Even a few emails from competitors grudgingly admitting that what she was building mattered. Aaliyah's debate team had their first competition. Lena and Noah drove 3 hours to watch, and when Elia took the stage, confident, articulate, completely in command of her argument, Lena cried. Afterwards, Elia found them in the crowd. "We got second place," she signed, grinning. "You were amazing," Lena signed back. "I was nervous, but then I remembered what you said about being scared, meaning you should do it anyway." "I said that?" "Last month, when you were freaking out about the speech." "Oh, well, I was right," Elia laughed. "You usually are. Don't let it go to your head." February brought Valentine's Day, and Noah asked Lena to move in with him. "Not right away," he clarified, "but eventually. When it feels right. Owen and I have been talking, and we both want you and Elia in our lives. Permanently." Lena's first instinct was panic. Moving in together meant commitment, meant blending families, meant stepping fully into a future she hadn't planned. But then she thought about the last year, about everything she'd learned about letting go of control, about trusting people, about building a life instead of just a career. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Yeah, let's do it. Not tomorrow, but soon." Noah kissed her, and Lena felt something she'd never felt before. Certainty. Not about everything, because life wasn't that simple, but certainty that whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. They told the kids over pizza. "We're moving in together?" Elia signed, her eyes wide. "Eventually, if you're okay with it." Elia looked at Owen. They had a rapid-fire signed conversation that Lena only half followed. Then they both grinned. "We're in," Elia signed. "Just like that?" "Mom, you've been dating for months. We've been waiting for you to figure this out." "Figured it out?" Owen signed. "We planned it. We've been telling them to move in together since October." Noah laughed. "You have not. We totally have. You're just both slow." March marked Lena's 1-year anniversary of starting sign language classes. Carol threw a small celebration, inviting everyone from the original beginner group. Lena stood in that same community center room, watching people sign with confidence they hadn't had 12 months ago, and felt a wave of gratitude. Rachel, the young mom who'd become her friend, came over. "You've come so far," Rachel said, signing and speaking simultaneously. "I remember when you could barely spell your name. I remember when I thought I'd never get it. And now? Now I can't imagine not knowing. It changed everything." "Your daughter must be thrilled." "She is. We both are." Lena looked across the room. Elia and Owen were teaching a new group of kids some game that involved a lot of dramatic signing and laughter. Noah was talking to another interpreter, their hands moving in that easy, fluid way that still amazed Lena. This was community. This was belonging. This was what she'd been missing her entire life while she was busy building walls and proving herself. April brought the 1-year anniversary of the accessibility division. The company threw a celebration. Diane, James, and Maria were all there, along with dozens of contractors, clients, and employees who'd made the vision real. Harold gave a speech about innovation and courage. David talked about the numbers, which were staggering. Then Harold called Lena to the front. "A year ago," he said, Lena Cross stood in front of this board and pitched an idea that seemed risky at best, reckless at worst. She talked about building a company that saw people, not just profits. That centered inclusion, not as a marketing strategy, but as a fundamental value. And I'll be honest, I was skeptical. The room laughed. But Lena didn't just sell us a vision. She lived it. She changed herself first, then she changed this company. And because of that, we're not just more profitable. We're better. We're building things that matter. We're creating spaces where everyone belongs. And that's worth more than any quarterly report. He turned to Lena. "Thank you for pushing us, for refusing to compromise, for showing us what's possible when we actually give a damn about people." The applause was deafening. Lena stepped to the microphone, her heart pounding. "A year ago," she said, "I didn't know sign language. I didn't know how to connect with my daughter. I didn't know how to build anything that wasn't driven by fear and the need to prove myself.
But I had good people around me who refused to let me stay stuck. My daughter, who never gave up on me even when I'd given up on us. A stranger who showed me what I was missing. Colleagues who trusted me when I didn't trust myself. And an entire community of people who taught me that different isn't something to fix, it's something to celebrate. She looked at Elia, who was sitting in the front row next to Noah and Owen. I still mess up, Lena continued. I still get too focused on work sometimes. I still struggle with letting go of control. But I'm trying. And I've learned that trying, even imperfectly, is better than not trying at all. So thank you, all of you, for taking this journey with me, for believing that we could build something better, and for reminding me every day that the best work we do is the work that makes people feel seen. She stepped back from the microphone. The room erupted again. Later, at the reception, Diane pulled Lena aside. You did good, Diane said. Really good. I had help. We all had help. That's the point. None of us does this alone. I'm still learning that. Keep learning. It's the only way forward. May brought the end of Aaliyah's 8th grade year and planning for high school. They toured 3 schools. The first 2 were fine, good academics, decent programs. But the 3rd school had a robust deaf and hard of hearing program with ASL fluent teachers and a community of students who signed. This one, Ilya signed after the tour. I want this one. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Lena enrolled her the next day. In June, they moved into Noah's house, a bigger place with a yard and enough room for everyone. The move was chaotic, boxes everywhere, furniture that didn't quite fit, arguments about where things should go. But underneath the chaos was joy, the kind that comes from building something together. Owen and Ilya decorated their rooms on the same floor. Owen's was covered in baseball posters and action figures. Ilya's had art supplies everywhere and string lights that made everything glow. The first night in the new house, they ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the living room floor because they couldn't find the dining table under all the boxes. This is a disaster, Noah said, looking around at the mess. It's perfect, Lena countered. How is this perfect? Because we're all here, together. That's all that matters. Owen signed something to Ilya, who laughed and signed back. What did they say? Lena asked Noah. Owen said this feels like a real family. Ilya agreed. Lena's eyes burned. It does, doesn't it? Yeah, Noah said, pulling her close. It really does. July brought a surprise, an invitation for Lena to speak at a TED conference about inclusive business practices. She almost said no. She'd done the national conference, done the interviews, shared her story more times than she could count. Part of her wanted to step back, let someone else take the spotlight, but then she remembered something Diane had said. Keep learning. It's the only way forward. Sharing the story wasn't about Lena. It was about the people who'd see it and realize they could change too. The parents who'd learn sign language, the business leaders who'd build more accessible spaces, the kids who'd see someone like them represented and feel less alone. So she said yes. The talk was scheduled for September, which gave her time to prepare. She worked with a coach, refined her message, practiced until the words felt natural. When the day came, she stood on that red circle, looked out at the audience, and told the truth. She talked about failure and fear and the distance she'd put between herself and the people who mattered. About the moment in the cafe when she realized what she'd lost. About learning to sign, about building a company that actually valued people, about discovering that success without connection was just expensive loneliness. We spend our lives building walls, Lena said, protecting ourselves from vulnerability, from failure, from the messy, complicated work of actually seeing each other. But those walls don't keep us safe. They keep us alone. And the only way out is to tear them down, to learn languages we don't know, to listen to voices we've ignored, to accept that being wrong is the first step to being better. She finished with the lesson she'd learned from Ilya. My daughter taught me that communication isn't about speaking the same language. It's about being willing to learn. And that willingness, that openness, changes everything. The talk went viral within days. Millions of views, thousands of comments, emails from people around the world saying the story had changed them. Lena read them all, overwhelmed and humbled. One email from a father in Australia stuck with her. I've been avoiding learning sign language for my son for 3 years. After watching your talk, I signed up for classes. Thank you for showing me it's not too late. She forwarded it to Elia with a simple message. This is because of you. Elia's response, no, Mom, it's because of us. August marked Elia's 14th birthday. They celebrated with a party in the backyard. Elia's debate team, kids from the deaf program at her new school, friends from the community center. The yard was full of teenagers signing, laughing, being gloriously, messily young. Lena stood on the porch with Noah, watching. She's happy, Noah said. She is. Finally. So are you. Lena looked at him. I really am. Good. You deserve it. So do you. Noah kissed her temple. Think we figured this out? The whole life thing? Not even close, but I think we're doing okay. Better than okay. Inside the house, Owen was helping set up the cake. He saw them through the window and waved. They waved back. I've been thinking, Noah said carefully. About? About making this official, not rushing, but eventually. What do you think about getting married? Lena's heart jumped. Are you asking? Not yet. Just testing the waters. Test away. And I think eventually sounds perfect. They went inside to light the candles, to sing to Elia in the language they'd all learned together, to celebrate another year of growth and change and stumbling toward something better. That night, after everyone had left and the kids were asleep, Lena sat in her office looking at old photos. There was one from 2 years ago, her and Elia at some corporate event, both of them stiff and uncomfortable, barely touching. Then she pulled up a photo from today. Her and Elia in the backyard, mid-sign, both laughing at something Owen had said. The difference was staggering. Same people, completely different life. Lena saved the photo and sent it to herself with a reminder. Don't forget what matters. Because that was the thing about change. It wasn't one big moment. It was 1,000 small choices. Showing up for sign language class when you were exhausted. Putting down your phone during dinner. Saying no to work that would pull you away from the people you loved. Learning to listen, really listen, instead of just waiting to talk. It was hard. Some days it felt impossible, but it was worth it. Over the next year, life settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable. Lena led the inclusion division, traveled when necessary, but never excessively, built a team she trusted. The company continued to grow, but so did its values. They became known not just for profitability, but for how they treated people, employees, clients, communities. Elia thrived in high school, made the debate team captain by sophomore year, started a mentorship program for younger deaf students, began talking about college, about studying design, about building spaces that worked for everyone. Noah's interpreting business expanded. He brought Lena on as a consultant for corporate clients, and together they helped dozens of companies understand that accessibility wasn't a burden, it was an opportunity. Owen discovered he loved theater, started performing in school plays, his signing so expressive it told the story even without words. They became a family in the truest sense, not because it was easy, but because they chose it every day, through arguments about chores and debates about curfews and moments when someone felt left out or misunderstood. They worked through it. They apologized. They tried again. And somewhere in all of it, Lena realized she'd stopped measuring her life by achievements and started measuring it by moments. The Saturday mornings at the community center, the dinners where everyone talked over each other, the quiet evenings when Elia would sit next to her on the couch, sketching while Lena read, their comfortable silence a language all its own. 3 years after that day in the cafe, Noah proposed. It was nothing fancy. Just the 4 of them at dinner, and Noah signing a question that made Elia cry, and Owen cheer, and Lena say yes before he'd even finished asking. They got married 6 months later in the backyard of their home, surrounded by the community that had helped them become the people they were. Carol was there. Diane and James and Maria. The whole team from work. Rachel and her son. Dozens of people whose lives had intersected with theirs in small but meaningful ways. The ceremony was bilingual, spoken and signed simultaneously. Elia and Owen stood as witnesses, their faces bright with joy. When it came time for vows, Lena signed hers directly to Noah. I spent most of my life thinking strength meant not needing anyone, that success meant doing it alone. You taught me I was wrong, that real strength is letting people in,
that real success is building something together. Thank you for seeing me, for loving me even when I didn't know how to love myself, for showing me what family actually means. Noah signed his vows through tears. You and Aaliyah gave Owen and me a second chance at happiness. You taught us that it's never too late to start over, to try again, to build something beautiful out of broken pieces. I love you, I choose you, today and every day after. When they kissed, the crowd erupted. Owen and Elia signed finally at the same time, which made everyone laugh. The reception lasted until midnight. They danced badly, ate too much cake, told stories that got more ridiculous as the night went on. At some point, Lena found herself alone with Ilya on the porch. Happy? Ilya signed. So happy I can barely stand it. Good. You deserve this, Mom. So do you. You deserve to have a family that sees you. Ilya smiled. I do. Finally. They sat together, watching the party through the window. Inside, Noah and Owen were teaching people some ridiculous dance move that involved way too much arm flailing. I'm proud of you, Lena signed, for everything you've become. I'm proud of you too, for everything you learned. We learned it together. Yeah, Ilya signed. We did. Years later, when people asked Lena about the moment everything changed, she always went back to that cafe, to seeing Ilya laugh with a stranger and realizing what she'd been missing. But the truth was more complicated than that. Change wasn't one moment. It was every moment after, every sign language class she showed up to, every dinner she prioritized over work, every time she chose connection over control, vulnerability over perfection. It was learning that being wrong didn't make you weak. It made you human. That needing help wasn't failure. It was wisdom. That love wasn't something you achieved. It was something you practiced every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The accessibility division became a model for companies worldwide. Ilya went to college and studied inclusive design, then came back to join the company, bringing fresh ideas and a perspective Lena would never have. Owen became a deaf education advocate, using his theater skills to teach people about communication access. Lena stepped back from day-to-day operations eventually, transitioning to an advisory role. She spent more time with her family, more time volunteering at the community center, more time doing the things that mattered. And on quiet evenings, when the house was full of the people she loved and the life they'd built together, Lena would think about that younger version of herself. The woman who'd stood in her office alone, convinced that success meant walls and distance and never showing weakness. She wished she could tell that woman what was waiting on the other side of fear. That the best thing she'd ever build wouldn't be a company or a reputation or a bank account. It would be a family, a community, a version of herself that knew how to listen. That the greatest success wasn't getting everything right. It was being willing to get it wrong, to learn, to change, to keep showing up even when you had no idea what you were doing. Because in the end, that was what love actually meant. Not perfection, not certainty, just the willingness to try, to learn someone else's language, to tear down walls you'd spent a lifetime building, to accept that you didn't have all the answers, and that was okay, because you didn't have to figure it out alone. Lena learned to see her daughter, and in doing that, she learned to see everyone, including herself, and that made all the difference.